I want to say a few things in this video about this idea of systematic study. Systematic study in any field: psychology, philosophy, literature, literary theory, criticism. What we usually mean when we say systematic study is an appropriate order of texts or set of ideas or thinkers to go through, to study a series of thinkers and texts in some order that is appropriate, that is right. The order makes sense. And going through going through the texts and thinkers in that right order is the main source of what makes our study systematic. Maybe there are other aspects of the method of study that makes it systematic, but that ordering, that sequence, is a big part. Now, what is it that makes that attractive? I'm a big fan of systematic study. However, I think that a big part of the draw, a big part of the attraction of systematic study is not the correct ordering of texts and thinkers. Instead, it is a kind of memory that we know we should have. And by memory, I don't mean this simple idea of just having good recall, remembering what you read before, being able to bring it back to mind. What I mean is the ability to recollect what we studied before in what we are studying now. So if I am, for example, studying Anselm, or if I'm studying Kierkegaard, I would be able to recollect the thinkers that I've read, thinkers that I've studied, thinkers that I've spent time with before in my study of Kierkegaard, in what I'm studying right now. What I studied before is being recollected in what I'm studying right now. And in effect, the effect of that is that my study is continuous in time. It has a memory, it has a history. My very activity of study, my very activity of reading and engaging itself is a historical process. And here's a side note. This might be a little bit contentious. I believe the richer your memory is of your field, of your relevant field of study, the richer your memory is, the more you are able to recollect, the more immune you are to fashions, to temporary fashions of your field, things or topics or questions that become fashionable for a while and then pass by and then are replaced by the next fashion. Those fashions are strongest when the people in the field don't have that memory of what has happened before. With this emphasis, with an emphasis on recollection, I think the priority or the emphasis on the correct, so-called correct ordering can be reduced. There's less pressure now. You don't have to go through the thinkers or texts in the right order. As long as you allow yourself to have that memory, that allow your study to be systematic in the sense that it is continuous, that what you read is going to be carried over in some way. You will not drop it completely. As long as you have that, then you can still be systematic without having any specific order. You can have your own order. You can have your own sequencing. And the ordering can be haphazard. As long as you have memory, you can still, I think, be systematic. Now, my own academic experience was mostly in psychology, in the discipline of psychology. And psychology is a discipline that is completely anti-memory, at least in my experience. And I think that resonates with a lot of students that I've been speaking with. A lot of people that have studied psychology are familiar with psychological courses, how psychology is being treated in academia. What I mean by anti-memory, psychology being anti-memory, anti-recollection, anti-systematic, in this sense that we are talking about, is that every course that you take starts from nothing, starts from zero recollection of what happened before. You take Introduction to Psychology, finish that, you move on to cognitive psychology or social psychology, some other course. Cognitive psychology has no recollection of any other thing that you studied before. Social psychology, again, starts from blank slate. Personality theory, not only that course, Theories of Personality or Personality Theory, not only does it start from scratch, from completely blank slate, every chapter, every topic in Theories of Personality almost begins from a blank slate. So you have these mini blank slates from which you start. Now, what does that do? What that does is it leaves students with a bag of fragmented pieces of information, bag of, what you have at the end of your degree. You have a collection of unrelated material that maybe you can make connections with, you can synthesize in some ways. But the plan of study, the program of study from the institution doesn't really encourage that. There is a rhetorical benefits in being fragmented. If the pieces of information that you have are not connected to each other, they're not synthesized in some general framework, then each piece can really justify itself because it is not resting on anything. It can justify itself as a piece of information, as a piece of knowledge that is important. It is important because it's telling you something. But if you do situate a piece of knowledge within a framework or within a history that makes it comparable to other pieces of knowledge, other ways of knowing, other people who have said similar things, then it runs the risk of deflating the thing, that piece of knowledge and its justification and its importance. Something happened at the last institution that I used to work at. The president of the university decided to buy some equipment for research, for neuroimaging, MRI machines, essentially, without discussion with the researchers in the relevant departments. So it was a very top-down decision, and it was an encouragement to everybody in psychology, psychological sciences. Any researcher, professor, academic staff relevant to neuroscience was encouraged to join a program of neuroimaging and use those equipments. Of course, there are a lot of benefits to that. I won't deny the benefits of having more equipments available to use. But what I want to point out at the same time is this disregard for the history, for the intellectual biographies, for the intellectual histories and memories of the individuals doing their research in psychology, doing their own thinking. And the fact that they didn't need that equipment. They didn't need their questions that they're dealing with, they're struggling with. They did not need brain imaging, that particular brain imaging equipment. But it would certainly be very effective to push the equipment on them if you treat them as if they don't have any memory, as if they're so flexible, so without memory, without historical continuity, that they can at any moment turn their attention, turn their framework around, and start asking a kind of question that is fashionable, trendy, and congruent with this equipment that the president of the university wants them to use. Now, in that situation, if there is somebody around in that university who does insist on systematic study, who does rely on having memory, having a kind of personal, intellectual biography, a process, and continuity, it will be very difficult for them to be around and collaborate in that kind of compulsive, hyper-flexible style of work. Anyways, systematic study is important. I think what we want from it is the ability to recollect and create continuities and insist on a kind of process that gives us memory of what we are studying and what we have studied before. But I also think that we live in a world where the academic trends urge us against having that systematicity and having memory. And that's it. Please let me know what you think. If any of what I've said resonates with your experience, whether your academic experience in universities or your self-study. Otherwise, I look forward to speaking with you in the near future. Thank you.